The word Vikings denoted Scandinavian people of the early Middle Ages, what different nation, countries and tribes belonged. But despite this existing at first glance differences, they got along very well with each other. Communicate. How did the Vikings do it to overcome the language barriers, and such an expansive and martial become people? The home of the Vikings was Northern Europe, a region that no longer forgives mistakes. So cruel and rough as the Vikings were, so they bet exactly also cruel and rough gods of the north. The greed for gold and booty was so great among the Vikings, that the almost 300 years long raids got their own epic in history. The Epic of the Vikings. By what deeds and character traits could some Vikings profess themselves, and become legendary, become heroes in the Norse sagas? The subject of this video are the top 5 most legendary Vikings that have ever existed. Here we go. Number 5. Harald III of Norway. Harald was king of Norway from the years 1047 to 1066 AD. In 1030 AD, at the age of 15, he was forced to flee to Norway, after taking part in the Battle of Stiklestad, in which his half-brother and king of Norway Olaf II fell. This information is also the only which indicate Harald's year of birth, as there are no other entries in this regard. Harald I went to Novgorod, in the service of Yaroslav I, after he first served the Byzantine Emperor Michael IV and Michael V. The emperors of the Byzantine Empire had a few decades earlier established their own Viking guard. Before he became king, Harald tried to conquer Denmark in a long and bloody conflict. But the conquest of Denmark was unsuccessful. In 1066 AD, in command of an army of 50,000 Vikings, Harald III landed on the coast of England, with his own claim to the English crown. On September 20, 1066 AD, he successfully destroyed the first English army, which was sent to meet him. But 6 days later, at the Battle of Stamford Bridge, near the city of York, Harald III attacked Anglo-Saxon army. With his death, 300 years of military expansion ended. The Vikings and heralded the end of the Viking era. Number 4. The French Duke Rolo. Rolo, the ruler of the French province of Normandy. In the 9th century, Rolo became the first Duke of Normandy. His successors called themselves Dukes of Normandy, and were integrated into the Christian feudal system of former France. Rolo's legacy later provided the legal basis for the conquest of England by a descendant of Rolo. Rolo is a direct ancestor of William the Conqueror, which conquered England in 1066 AD. Relatively little is known about Rolo, but their number is sufficient to him, as the founder of a new one epic scene in Europe. At the age of 16, Rolo becomes a leader of a Viking group. He then organized a major raid on the western part of the Frankish Empire, today's France. King Charles III of France was forced into northern France after years of bloody battles to sign a peace treaty with the Vikings. For this reason, in 911 AD, a peace treaty was signed between the closed to the French and the Vikings. From this point, Rolo became the first duke and the ruler of Normandy. Rolo married the daughter of King Charles III, Princess Gisela. In addition, Rolo had Christian baptisms and accepted Christianity as a religion. He had his name changed from Rolo to Robert. He subsequently became the King of Normandy. Robert I. Number 3. Eric the Red. Eric the Red was a Norwegian Icelandic navigator and explorer. He was nicknamed the Red because of his red hair and beard. In addition, he was said to have brutally waged wars, and there's a lot of blood on his hands. He is known as the founder of the first Scandinavian settlement in Greenland. Eric lived from the years 950 AD to 1003 AD. Eric the Red was first known by his numerous and very brutal and bloody guided raids. In addition, He could, through his excellent knowledge of geography and his talent as a navigator, to reach some destinations by ship. Erik Thorvaldsson had a rough and combative character. He was initially banned from Norway to Iceland on suspicion of murder. But there were difficulties again in Iceland. After 3 years in Iceland, Erik the Red was banished from Iceland again for murder. His neighbor, the murder victim, borrowed a boat from Erik and didn't want to give it back. In another case, he took revenge on another Viking who killed his slaves. He then sailed to Greenland and established a colony there. The settlement flourished and grew to over 3,000 inhabitants. Over the years there has been a further influx of settlers from Iceland. A heavy blow was followed by an epidemic, which the new settlers brought to Greenland in 1002 AD and which Erik also fell victim to. However, the colony recovered and lasted until the 15th century. Erik the Red had 4 children, including the famous explorer of Vinland in what is now Canada, Leif Erikson. Number 2. Ragnar Lothbrok. Ragnar Lothbrok was a Viking and king in Denmark, who have lived in the early 9th century. He is a hero in Norse saga literature, and is said to be, among other things, father of Sigurd, Bjorn, Halfdan, Ivar, and Ubba Ragnarsson. Ragnar Lothbrok's existence is only revealed through narratives in the Norse legends and sagas confirmed. One of the facts that made Ragnar Lothbrok very famous all over Europe was his raid on Paris in 845 AD. During the raid on Paris, Ragnar Lothbrok commanded a large fleet of Viking ships which numbered around 120 ships included, and brought about 5,000 Vikings to Paris. The capture of Paris was successful. The siege of Paris in 845 AD was the first Viking siege of the city. The Norsemen drove up the river Seine, ravaging the banks unresistingly. Despite the formation of an army, the French King Charles the Bald considered a fight to be hopeless and made deals with the Vikings for the ransom payment of 7,000 pounds of silver. This led to a temporary withdrawal of the Vikings. The temptation to ransom again, however, subsequently led to further raids on the city every few years. The next stage, which brought Ragnar Lothbrok even more honor and glory in the Norse sagas, was the campaign of conquest in Britain in the year 865 AD. But luck was not on his side this time. His ships ran partly on reefs on the coast of England, and only part his army reached Northumbria. He became follow several skirmishes from the king of Northumbria named El captured. In connection with a criminal case, he was arrested by order of King El, thrown into a pit with poisonous snakes. In this pit Ragnar Lothbrok died an agonizing death. Number 1. Ivar the Boneless. Ivar the Boneless is said to be the son of Ragnar Lothbrok, and the Norwegian seawoman Aslug, with the nicknames Kraka, translates to have been the crow. Ivar was a legendary leader of the Vikings, and king of some Vikings' kingdoms. Ivar the Boneless and his Vikings were different from the rest Vikings in unbridled brutality and absolutely no fear in battle. These Vikings were also called berserkers. Ivar the Boneless was the leader of a large multilingual army of Vikings, which landed in Northumbria in 866 AD, to avenge his father, Ragnar Lothbrok, who was executed by King El. The Anglo-Saxon forces were annihilated at the Battle of York, and captured King El, king of Northumbria. King El was made by Ivar the Boneless, and the other sons by Ragnar Lothbrok, by the method of the blood eagle executed. As for the nickname of the Boneless, there are many to this day historians disagree. There are only 2 theories that can explain this nickname. The first theory says that Ivar is very agile in battle and combat, supposed to be an Asian kung fu fighter. The second theory is that Ivar genetically had a disease affecting his legs, paralyzed, or he could only take steps by humping. I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, please leave a subscription and a thumbs up. See you soon, your channel History Best.